Hey everybody, my name's Richard Lee Neiden, and I'm doing this video because Gil asked if I would be on Makers Monday, and I said sure, I'd be more than happy to be on Makers Monday. So, on this episode of Makers Monday, you've got me. What I would define myself as is mostly like a maker. It's not really a maker, it's more, well, I'm a maker in the sense that I'm a scroller, so I make things. So I'm a maker, but what I really consider myself is a scroller, but I'm also a pattern designer. And I started pattern designing a while back. I started scrolling back when I was about 11 or 12, and the reason I got started scrolling is because I'm a third generation woodworker. My grandfather had a shop, and he got my father interested in woodworking, and my father had a shop, and I likewise got interested in woodworking because of that. My father had a scroll saw, which I taught myself to use. I started with one pattern, and I got really good at that one pattern, and then I got bored with that pattern, and I went online and started looking for more patterns. And that's when I found MSN groups, and I found a bunch of patterns on there, but I also learned how to make my own patterns. Is Sawdust. This is actually the magazine for Scrollers Saw Association of the World, and which I'm currently the president of. This magazine comes out 4 times a year with your yearly subscription, which is $25 a year. What this magazine has in it is all of the information going on in Saw, plus what's going on with the clubs, and some information about different events and things that are going on. And as you can see, it has patterns in it as well. So this one I'm the editor of, so a lot of my free time goes to this. You guys want to know what my favorite piece of equipment is? Obviously it's the scroll saw. That is my pride and joy. I have a DeWalt 788 Type 1. I've had it for probably 12, 13, 14 years now. I bought it off a gentleman that owned a woodcraft store and went out of business. So I've had it for a long time, and I've babied it, and I've knocked on wood. I never had an issue with it thus far. So that is my baby, and that's my favorite piece of equipment. But the other thing that is a necessary piece of equipment, which I have to use a lot, is my computer for my design side of things. And I really like using GIMP. It's one of my favorite programs to use for designing patterns. My favorite project thus far that I've cut on the scroll saw is this beautiful eagle that I have in my hand. This is cut on live edge, and it is this is very old. This pattern here was done by a gentleman by the name of Old Grizz or Grandpa Grizz, something like that. He was part of MSN groups, which we now know has gone by the wayside. But Old Grizz or Grandpa Grizz, whatever his name was, he made this pattern, and it's gorgeous, and I've had this for years. But it's one of my favorite patterns that I've done on my saw. The one thing that I want to learn, going into the future, is I want to learn how to carve. I had an opportunity to learn when my grandfather was around, and I didn't really pay attention. I didn't have the patience for it. I could never sit long enough to carve something and visually see it. I'm more of a scroller because I have to have the pattern. So that's why I'm more of a pattern designer and more of a pattern-based woodworker. I think that's the one thing I could never figure out with carving, is I couldn't visually take the square block of wood and cut a little here and cut a little there and have it turn out to be like a statue. I just couldn't do it without a pattern. I know there are carvers that have patterns, but my grandpa usually did it not with a pattern. He just did it by his head. But my grandpa probably carved over 100 Santa Clauses in his lifetime, and they were gorgeous. So that's why I wanted to learn, because he was a carver. But I never did have the time to learn that, which is something I wish I would have done. And then the other thing I want to learn is I want to learn how to do something called flame work. It's a form of glass work where you take I think it's either a propane torch or butane torch, something like that, and you can melt metal and you can make like little figurines. There was a gentleman doing it at the medieval fair a few years back. When we went to the medieval fair, and he was making like little unicorns and dragons and castles and stuff, and I thought it was so cool. So that's something I want to learn how to do in the future.